Chona, Chola Benja, Sanje, Sanje, Chodan, Soja, Chona, Chanjo Bado, Tanya, Jaso, Taji, Chichen, Chola Benja, Sanje, Robara, Sanje, Chodan, Soja, Chona, Chanjo Bado, Tanya, Taji, Chichen, Chona, Chola Benja, Sanje, Robara. Sho Tayan Tan Gade Gade Paran Gade Parasom Gade Bodhisattva Tayan Tan Gade Gade Para Gade Parasom Gade Bodhisattva Tayan Tan Gade Gade Parasom Gade Bodhisattva Wala so takanje namju ne shi jan dak kulon ta number ta ba se ta me ta sim je tham je le do san je kuma ma ta na tham do to ma ji gi en di che do ta ge jan ju se ma lab jan na chui che de nyang zu lan ke en la wa le xian guo xie ba le tuo guo tuo le tuo ji shou ma no wa chi guo ju en ka su ba wa de ta ka ja je ji chen be zhe xie duo de ne li in sam zhe wo de ko ba jia.
And so we begin by setting our motivation as we normally do. That is, of course, to do our very best to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. With the knowledge that in order to attain that state, we must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. To obviously perfect those trainings, we need to have to train in those teachings, in those trainings, we need to actually have an understanding of what they are about. And for that reason, we need to rely on a non-mistaken text or non-mistaken presentation. And this morning, we have an opportunity to listen to a talk from just such a text, the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So
the com is lagu
hola.
That charger the making
Again, I was just asking that since we've begun the text as a sort of approaching it as a meditational text, and so that aspect of setting up the merit field with the Buddha and so on, and going through this as a meditational text to immediately apply into one's meditation. He's asking if you want to continue in that way, or do you find it inconvenient and just to stick with the text itself, or to keep with the meditational aspect to it also?
I'd like to keep with the meditation.
Joan and I think yes with the meditation too, please.
Yes.
Again. Yeah. Any Kaja any teacher pay what the Gasha come to your Gasha Mary, Garazu Chenian, the Nyamdo come to Trashagina, and got trade in Yamnetia in Bati, was looked at the Yamnetia in Bati Ratchesta, and the same year table lampier singing data, she would Casoda Chicasoda Chicarazu Pendo, she would do that Yamne, Chela Pendo, you think it's ready, Yapuri class.
So that's good. Yeah, it's just that again, as aware that some people will have the time to meditate, some people won't have the time to meditate. But since this is, of course, a text like any other, particularly in the mind training genre, that not just is to be understood, but to be actually integrated into one's life, to be put into practice, and meditation can be seen as a conduit through which that may happen. And so to be able to incorporate the meditation aspect as well is very, very good, especially in the context of that process of taking the results onto the path. In other words, to kind of really embody what we are
learning. Yeah, that the name that Rangi doing the letter, Kaja, Tapjala, Tuja Chamo the Tama, war and getting it away Lama Yimbala, Naba, and it to Bashaja Tuba, and Shaji Chani, and Casa Lula Chubanam Sushawa, son, and Casa, yes, and in Casa yes, and in your jacket to the call who's another. Good children want me to just so. What are the legend? And what's about to show you some what it's
And so therefore, yes, we continue as before, visualizing in the space in front of us the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, the one who is both skilled in means and greatly compassionate. He is seated in the Vajra posture on a throne. He has the saffron robes of a monk. His right hand is touching the earth in the earth touching mudra. His left hand is in the meditative equipoise posture, holding an alms bowl filled with nectar. And yes.
And because what rangi tago do and tinchebe marking simja that's the permanent chebeta the any the pamata any did the jawa yaku make the nation any rangi titone give the round to give the ming tam to magate the chuchi yontigo or the last the pamma simja the zibe type marking simja tam jeta maso never use some what the gobashi or that what the chat and the tinja orang just number to basha to and jiwo jamba tuga homes there is some set up tuga hole was a part of member join sing ram and yi ba on la the jaba jenta and yi ba de to basha to be number la jenta ne tim only on kur and chu lama jeto never le and we give a weekend what is go basha.
And we are to try to maintain the notion that the Buddha that we are visualizing is actually there, is really there. It's not simply a visualization. And now all kind mother sentient beings are surrounding us. We need to try to really, again, visualize and include in there those that we actually know, like our parents, relatives, and friends, and so on. And pay particular attention to visualizing those with whom we do not have a good connection, who perhaps even at the sound of their name causes upset in our mind. And that all then are collected in that visualization, all the beings from the 6 realms of existence without exception. And then bringing our attention to the central figure again. The Buddha is marked at the crown with an Om, at the throat with an A, and at the heart with a Hung. Countless rays of light emanate from that Hung at the syllable at the heart, going into the pure realms and inviting back both the wisdom beings and the empowering deities. The wisdom beings dissolve into the central figure. The empowering deities empower the Buddha with nectar flowing and then overflowing at the crown, and from that overflowing nectar appears the Buddha Akshobhya.
What did the Kubasha and rather than the Magasm Jatamjale and the Joe Jaba to a home. You take it. This was somebody what did the Kubasha.
Likewise, and with all the kind mother sentient beings all around us, they are also marked with the 3 syllables at the crown, at the throat, and at the heart.
I need to get Sunday again, Kuson to the Yunde Timbeton, and Tawetama, Yigitama, Wundokitama Soba, that Junzeto Tebach. And the Tavanija Ranga Tawa de Vene, Simja Tamjag, and Simja Dada Tamjag, and Jigatunga Nasu. That gave it to a Kaveto, a Chivetunga, the Vengo Seja Minebetu, Lido Toto Pomatunga, La Soma, Takaja, Taganishin, and Tunga to a Taba to Jigatunga La Soba, that the Dagi to Dagi, and not that much. How do you anyway? Because of the Taba to Jigatunga, not that much. What is it? Gobashet?
And then with the all the figures, including ourselves, of course, marked by the Om, Ah, and Hung, by really recalling the tremendous qualities of an enlightened being, of their enlightened body, speech, and mind, skillful means, etc. So this the reasoning why we have that connection with the Buddhas, and also reflecting with great faith by recalling all the qualities of the Buddha. And we develop that faith of conviction, that pure faith, and that manifest faith, by really wanting to not just appreciate these wonderful enlightened qualities, but to emulate these qualities also. Likewise, we have a mind, an eye on the suffering, of course, of all the mother sentient beings all around us, and moving into that as kind of profoundly and as comprehensively as we can, thinking about the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, death, of not getting what we desire, of getting what we do not desire, of reflecting on the suffering of suffering, the suffering of change and pervasive suffering, particularly that third suffering of pervasive suffering as really kind of pointing to the root cause of why we're in cyclic existence in the first place.
아니 마리베 온기 샤와도 지내다 동네들 나츠도 상마다 아니 어딘데 고바셨다 간제 지 가서래 셈자라 미베니 제 아니 다 탐지라 투지 셔부터 또 바샤제 또 발에 미베 때봐 뭐다 어딘데 지기 고바셔 어딘데 시간에 제 어디서 디체도 다 산제 고바마도 타바치기 디체도 다 가서다 You'll said that Tomasha Commander Machigi, teacher the Jaduka single Kimachigi, and again a Jabala love Chigi, teacher the and again a Jabala love to get any show and a Juju and then making send over to the Comasha.
And really knowing how pervasive suffering is ever present because of the power under which we are reborn again in this cyclic existence through a mental affliction and the karmas, and particularly the root cause of the grasping at the true existence of a self entity, and how we must overcome that, how we see the example of the Buddha, the Buddha's training, the Buddha's teachings, and ultimate enlightenment, and focusing on that, and focusing on the main cause to bring that about, this mind of enlightenment itself, and really further recharging our motivation to do whatever we can to be able to bring that about, and to kind of adjust our behavior and our attitudes, our motivation, in order to cultivate that mind of enlightenment as much as we can. And for that reason, I am listening to the seminal text of the Bodhisattva's Way of Life.
Oh yeah, and because that's something that because never longer asa never longer that casa shebala and casa shebala ni chena and tenjola ni bochita lambe chidalamba asa chidalamba kuacha ni bochita lambe suicha ni bochita lamba kuati that to chawacha ruwa to chawacha ta ni bochita lambe suide ta ni bochita lambe suide la Jaju Sem Sama and Semi Kena Jobal Lapsu with the subject nature. That about the case of the Jaju Sem Takaja gave paying somebody Layan and a Lu Shung Sheva, Lu Tse Sheva, nature. That will Lu Shung Shevatella, double nature. The Waposhe, Java Drew the Batama, Jaju Sem the paying gave a Sheva Chinova, Saturday connection. Which that would the Casura happened the Baboshe, Java Drew the Tabati, what it check.
So, yeah, we've been following the text thus far according to the outlines and then the subheadings of these outlines. And so we've been following looking at the following, getting to know the stages of the path, an explanation of the stages of the path, and looking at taking the essence of that path in terms of recognizing ourselves as having these freedoms and endowments associated with a precious human existence, and then how to actually take the essence. So here we have been looking at the first of these, or the former outlines, and now we're looking at this how we actually take the essence of this precious human rebirth. And this is further divided into two subheadings. This is the looking at reflecting on the benefits of habituating to the mind of enlightenment, and the second is having developed the two minds, then how we train in the practices. So the first of these again has two subheadings: an explanation according to the text of this chapter, and the second an explanation according to the name of this chapter. And with regard to the first, again, two subheadings, and that is the instruction on why it is correct to abandon negativity on the one hand and establish virtue on the other. And the second of these then is a more extensive explanation of the benefits of the mind of enlightenment.
다 담보될 때봐 가서 대 디고 보시 겨와 두 리퍼 담바til라 다 담바til라 더 어디 담바til라 제다 츠모나 제롬나 로주 계제람나 덤바다 대신 산제 투에 잘라나 제다 소나 로주 tan가 중스 자와 자지 티체.
And so with regard to the first of these subheadings, that is the instruction on how it is correct to abandon negativity on the one hand and establish virtue on the other. We're looking at verse 5. Just as a flash of lightning on a dark, cloudy night, for an instant brightly illuminates all. Likewise, in this world, through the might of Buddha, a wholesome thought rarely and briefly appears.
다 간제 지 장주가 셈 귤레게 걔네는 줘발라 라메til라 네 가르고 그랬으나 아니 튼제 초사와 개개 집어 장와 쓰지 니가 돈을 주고 그도와 튼제 가르고 초사 그랬어 안디 개개 들은 너 밖에 개개는 디바 장 그랬어 장 아니 자 로타 토마스 디바 장 그랬어 개개 자 가서나 가서래 我这个他就3月多也对打过去要不然呢一路也那就做过去了你对打过的出来有不买的吧你这个可能涨嘛是过了吧他那涨嘛说让个另外一手不这个另外一手那就做过数的话就嘛进场了吧对吧给讲话听见错啥这个有的我觉得
And so, in order to be able to generate the mind of enlightenment and thereafter to train in the activities and behaviors of the Bodhisattva, we need to be able to establish all of the conducive conditions necessary to enhance our cultivation of that mind, but also we need to focus on the inconducive conditions or the obstructive conditions that need to be purified. And so it's kind of saying this is a comprehensive approach that must be kind of adopted in order to be able to cultivate something so profound as the mind of enlightenment. So it's kind of saying really that we need to make our body mind kind of as a suitable receptacle, as it were, for the mind of enlightenment to thrive and flourish. And so it's like, when we want to care for the body, we choose, we want to eat well and drink well of pure and clean food and so on. And that's kind of very important to be able to establish a good health and so on. So it's saying here we must do the kind of the prerequisites of purifying ourselves of anything inconducive and establish all conducive qualities to allow that seed of the mind of enlightenment to flourish.
他感觉这个，我说他的给我做这个帮手的，我说过去呢用的是那么多，个个别，他别人俺那做能把意思个，天关全部意思，需要开2个月是个的，甚至他们就是3家公妈准备是，人家让俺那做来，俺那顾客是面的看不多，差不多给我的就到这么一那样，就是到是这俺没给我的就这么多，我这个顾客别努了多，但感觉就告诉了。 努的多，我觉得他，我觉得印度大概的 배들에서 제가 배나 처음 문화 지로나 가서 다 지금 다외 위에 되게 매버잖아 배 문반 나고 딱가서도 되게 문화게 아니 어떤 되게 되게 다 지금 가서도 그 문화게 그래서 지로나 아니 로 축제시 요원도 아니 강가 탈림이 갈 통해 줘 봐. 통도에 저다 디너 시잖아. 디너 시잖아. 아니 다 디너 시잖아. 나라 쪽에 다 지금 가서도 다 계획 나와야 아니 산지가 투에 아니 잘하나 기부 직된 만나라 아니 소남 자냐다 소남 자고다 그래서 뭐 디너 시게 다 고급 좀 맞소죠. 뭐 데레다 축제면도 매야 되겠지. 매야 되게 소리 공부 심술에 도와서 다 공부 심술에 이봐지 아니 디 다디 아니 고급 심네 아니 그 공부 좋아 축제 좋아지 아니 그 모두는 내다봐 모두는 근데 좀 투여야 아니 땅 알아서 배준钱다 내가 소도 그래 어디 가서는 알아줘라 되게 딱 심지어 담자 산재 고발 주바 되게 가사게 그 고급 심고랬어 고급도 다 내투가 친구랬어 고급 좋아지 고급 배주 땅에 아니 모두는 고급이 용해라 고급이 용해게 다 고급 심도 지고 됐어. 뭐다 순거 다 되지. 예. 그 공부를 공부 이번 것도 워터 받잖아. 나면은 마셔 받잖아. 저번에 신신의 심전. 아니 뒤다 틱스 여바티 아니 야제 땅 거스다. 공도 배고 그랬어. 학교도 빼는 거좀 미루 된다. 뒤는 다다 지금 최다 전에 지금 대적으로 된 지금 굉장히 또 상대가 값도 되라. 아니 미즈 촐라 마다 전에 미즈 촐라 마다 왔잖아. 딱 이제 이 배바치고를 또 공부를 했어. 수고 열마다 공부를 했어. 이거 보시 개와 두발 배바차 와서 배바치 배주치고 했어.
So this is a sort of a stark kind of like reminder to us that you know, we cannot afford a moment's complacency in our efforts to develop the mind and cultivate these wonderful qualities. Now we may you know, refer to ourselves as a Buddhist, as a Mahayana Buddhist, and so on, as a follower of the Buddha, as somebody who's working for the benefit of all sentient beings, etc., etc. But we also must recognize how feeble such a motivation is in the face of the power of the negativity that is so kind of prevalent in our minds and so on. And it's so it's all about here recognizing the kind of rare opportunities that we have now, and to always put ourselves in the very best position to take that opportunity, because the mental afflictions will arise continuously. They are adventitious. It's almost like every moment has the conducive conditions for some sense of a mental affliction to arise in the mind. And so we've got to counteract that. And the first thing we have to recognize is that just like on a very dark, pitch black night with no moon, that a flash of lightning stands out very clearly, representing that single moment of meritorious thought to generate virtue in the minds of all the vast numbers of worldly beings. And it's saying here that just that's coming through, you know, the power of the Buddha. And so we have to recognize that in this situation, that I need to take that flash of inspiration, of virtue, of merit, and to repeat it again and again and again, so that it becomes continuous. Because after all, you know, it's not just in the context of developing the mind of enlightenment that we should think about abandoning negativity and establishing virtue. It is this is our charge continuously, if we see ourselves as Buddhists, if we see ourselves following a spiritual path, and that the notion of the continuity of virtue and breaking the continuity of negativity should be always foremost in our actions and in our motivations. And so here it's all about saying this is a reminder, this flash in the darkness of night is a reminder to us to make continuous efforts to establish a virtue as our go-to thinking and speaking and actions of our everyday life. And so this is all about not just seeking the opportunities for virtue when they arise, but being more proactive in creating the opportunities for virtue. And this kind of brings into play again that attitude of mindfulness and alertness that is there to be able to recognize virtue, recognize the conditions for virtue, recognizing the opportunity for virtues, and always to kind of remind ourselves again that we have this precious human body as a basis, a wonderful basis to be able to kind of really dedicate ourselves to this practice of the continuity of virtue, and therefore remind ourselves not to waste any time, because it is a rare, very rare occasion, like that single flash of lightning in the darkness of a whole night.
타바다 탐제 겸 주베체도 아니 디바방 겨와 빠서 그 용해 거라 요마다 딜레 남주 시울다 시라고 제 시울 거고도 용해 거라 다 밀리 겨와실려 말은 것도 또 단도 전부 니 내당 스타다 뭐저 하고 거 그랬다 아니 저기 가서랬다 지다 미상보다 미하고 망고 열 때 이내야 가서래 저 망체 저기 안에 세디 된다라 미 구샵다 제고다 미야고를 쓰기를 된대게 지게 최계고 온도 전에 상보다 여러 소리 찾대도 타바다 탐제 캠베 두비에 채도 아니 디바봉 겨와 좀 쓰다 15년으로다 15년으로 학도도 타이베 마게 섬제 탐제게 돼도 아니 저기 아니 소소 가사비 디바봉에 아니 겨와서도 두비에 쓰는데 다 15년 15년 들어와. 그래. 오다 니뇨래. 오다 돼서 다 된데 그 용화라. 된적을 누대지 말은 탑매도 소식도 와. 탑매도 소식도 와. 가서는 된적을 누대디 아니 나기 바차기 온게 아니 지금 가서도 겨왕같이다 렌제다. 아니 지금 다간 이제 타바다 탐제 겸바다 된대라. 아니 지금 몇바디 이지 유되게. 아니 들라 되네. 아니 디유 가서도 다같이 겨와 주게. 아니 디게 디바데 디바 장야스긴 와다 데네터는 용 되게 차티기도 와 와다 다디도 다 시고죠 공부를도 시고 공부를 다다 소소라디 니바데 소소 워처마 챘네 아니 디 배주 로컬 모두 챘대 개체부로 와 어디래
And so, given the rarity of these opportunities, then this is a verse which is exhorting us to really abandon negativity and to establish virtue in our lives. And so here it's also, again, is reminding us that if we're born into the lower realms, for example, we are offered no opportunity to engage in this kind of practice. And not only are you kind of having to endure the sufferings of these lower realms, but of course, you bring your mindset with you there. And so there's this constant attachment and aversion going on in your attitude as well. And we can see that even now, even though the people we know and ourselves, how prevalent are these mindsets of attachment to what we want to grasp at and aversion to what we dislike and so on. And so even in this life, and so we can see that there is little or very little opportunity for a genuine virtue to be able to establish and to kind of like see that the virtue that leads to the likes of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, which must be accomplished along with these high levels of wisdom and so on. This is kind of extremely rare. we have very little opportunity to engage in this. And so we have to see where we're at, and to see as a human being, it really does offer us this unparalleled basis to be able to see what is kind of virtuous, and to understand what is negativity, to be able to draw a clear distinction between them. And that and even though there are plenty of kind, good people in the world, you can see that even though that is the case, for the most part, they are only good in terms of in worldly terms, in terms of people paying respect to them, and they're having this reputation only in worldly terms, like this kind of engaging this one life theory of activities. And so when it comes to people who are motivated to do good and to avoid the negativity in order to attain liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, is extremely rare. And therefore, to be able to recognize that we have a precious human rebirth, and what that means, is extremely important, because it's no easy feat to attain such a precious human rebirth, in that there have to be these kind of imprints on the mind that we have become habituated to, looking into appreciation for past and future lives, for the law of cause and effect, for the actual attainment of enlightenment itself, in that to really understand kind of what is precious about a precious human rebirth. Therefore, we need to really become intensely passionate about virtue on the one hand, and have that same level of passion for eradicating negativity, and to really recognizing this through our mindfulness and alertness, and being always aware that this precious human rebirth has these qualities of being extremely rare, extremely hard to find. Therefore, I must never abuse or misuse this opportunity.
But the Sanjay get about the long up the tajus, not the Lungatong. That check out some Lord, because the Naton Lord you don't do your Patalatic. When Jenna, that Kalakanzam, some Chion Koral, Kalakanza Titola, and the chicken, because of the Yamachi put on Kalakanza, your concern there, the Comborwa. That then Sanjay get about you, but I'm never to Shidamar. Never to Shidamar. And in that, the Chicala, and Zamulin Dinkala Sanjay get them money back of the condition with it. The rich call Miki or you know, meet the condition with it. Chida miss somebody, what do you show it? You would it. Yena, how about that temptation to Yaki? Lamdo Meva Insan, and it Lamdo Meva Insan, and it D Tola, and it Tabat temptation to Yaki, and it because of the Java to it, the Wapoy, young Missima sort of chatted. Young Missima sort of that Lord, you don't have that to get puzzle other when to do some bush which got rid of. In another combustible. Chida, Sanjay Chula, you net to get the Pemaguyori. In a Yame, you get the Comborwa. That year, so get the Sanjay Church, Ninja Tower, the Jabba the Ninja Shuji said to the Sumu, other Dikawu Yore. Sigur Yore. In a D Tarchima and Shibetone, and a chicken Sanjay unit to go to Combore, and the Yamnetic Telecomba. Not yet the risk college and Kazis Combu in Sari. Chida Chilo Tena Kazis Combrisa. And a Rangla Tena, that other Jawa Chematilla. And it didn't take a military leg or social YouTube to the 2 Mudu. Here, to what was that? To watch it. That got nature Mongo, that top there, but it's up that you was Tang Matubaina. That and she will pump it. She will pump it. What that to get the Shebetone and the Casso de Tap and the Shebetone and the Casa de Casso de Casso de Kiwatu and the Tiba Power line. That you check. Teach why, and it was 미지도 조sam려 소소 산지게 때마 다사지 케어 점벌인들 산지 때마 매워 차와이네 소소라 겨 지금 말이야 나 점벌이샤 산지게 때마 다사지 케주고 그래 케주고 그래 거두이네 점벌이들 께는 거두이네 대기와 말와 소소가 산지게 때마 지에다 때마 냠네 지에게 소소 주주 좀 되나 아니 소소 된데게 제부 디 펜베 톱기 아니 야 점벌이 셔말 점벌이 딜라 산지게 때마 냠차네 산지 때마 다사지 소소 게 되게 돼 가야 소소 게 돈에 언더 개치도 소소 주주에 개자 주주가 있나 제보를 나와 요 말이야 다 주마도나 제보 저거 쇼저 저와 가봐 있네 아니 주에 매되게 차고 와
And so again, that it is said that the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha Shakyamuni, the Buddha of this era, his teachings will last 5,000 years, after which time they will no longer be present in this world. And so we have to consider the Buddha having been in this world some 2,600 years ago. We have, and already roughly over halfway through that time period. And so here, whether the Buddha's teachings are present or are no longer present, we have to understand that we have here now, we are in this world now, and that we are human beings in this world now, and that here we have an opportunity to meet with those teachings and to make the best of our kind of encounter with those teachings. And so it's kind of like, again, looking at the rarity of all of this, that here where the Buddhist teachings are still extant, we have good people, we have people who are striving to be good, but those who are centered on and really determined to attain liberation or the omniscient state of enlightenment is still very, very rare, and that very, very rare. And that here that when we're in a situation, when the teachings of the Buddha are gone, and we're born into a land or a world where there's no sound or no evidence of the Buddha's teachings, and then how will one be able to make progress towards the state of liberation or the omniscient state of enlightenment when there's no path shown to us? There's no path to that. And so that time will come. And it's kind of like, if you look into the kind of long-term eons of existence, there have been far more times when the Buddhist teachings have not been present in the world than have been present in the world. And so here, in a situation where the Buddhist teachings are not present, then it would seem to be impossible to make any progress on the spiritual path. And so here with the some 2,500 years left, we have those who heard the teachings and those who have practiced the teachings. So there's a big difference there too. Many people hear the teachings or have experience of attending teachings, but very rare are those who actually put those teachings into practice, who integrate those teachings into their lives. And so even though, like within the Dharma, there are these teachings on love and compassion, which are very pleasing for people to hear, and so they kind of like that idea. But the kind of the teachings that accompany them in order to make those teachings most meaningful are kind of more distasteful to people's ears, and they don't like to hear those. So it's a case of really asking the question of, what am I doing in this life to guarantee that I will be able to establish the Dharma in my life in the next life. And so it's very, very important that if we really aren't fully committed to integrating what we learn from the teachings into our lives, into our practice, then we have to be doubtful whether we will gain that opportunity again in the future life. And that would be most sad and even disastrous, considering the opportunity we have been afforded in this life. And so therefore, to again dedicate ourselves to virtue and dedicate ourselves to abandoning negativity is extremely important. And so here, to also understand that if we are genuine in our approach, if we are doing our best, making the most of our situation, using our mindfulness and alertness to really take the essence of this great opportunity that we have, and then we are establishing the causes in our own mind stream. And if we have the causes, for example, to be born in the next life, in a country or a land or a world where the Buddhist teachings are flourishing, then the result will have no choice but to ripen. And so that's the other side of the coin. And that if we are genuine and true in our practice, that even if teachings are disappeared in this world, we will be reborn into a world where the Buddhist teachings are flourishing.
아니 가제 산제 때만 다리 요바 이나야 야 바깔로 냠자 치 요바나 냠자 침베게 내들라 이들라 야 때바 라르소토 바쇼스 왔다 되게 몰람 요바데 소스가 몰람 자 왔다 되게 소스가 제토 바쇼스 냠네 제 몰람에 자 왔다 되게 때바 인제 초죠 마자 자스 다 때바 뭐자 자치 못이 아니 마자베네 때바 마타서 루바 때바 되돌라 아니 소스가 때바 다토 바쇼스 아니 때바 나 다리요 아니 다제 냠자 친데나 안 디사제들이야 때바 라르소토 쇼스 와도 몰람 수제자 라게 냠내 후다 받아체 아니 몰람 수제자 어디데 송데 저는 저와 이나 란줄라 또바키 아니 차라보다 산제기 때바데 제 아니 때바도라 펴바 슈첨부 두예 와 아니 지게 가소라다 때바를 펜토토바 쇼 아니 베랑게 가서다 무엇이 유스네 산지게 때문에 팬토토가 쇼 몰람 순제잡 몰람 잡 아니 그게 맛이 뭐배 온게 지금 내가 이네 내가데 패배줄라 주어쇼 몰람 잡네 그러다 그거 맛이 뭐배 온게 야 산지게 때문에 내가 좀 용미스와 말어 가서 내당 거 아니 맛이 뭐배고 내가 좋아 이번에 내가데 산지게 때문에 다야다 산지게 때문에 팬토에 줄 주어쇼 어디에 뭐 어쨌잖아
And so, therefore, not only are we really encouraged to do our very best in this process of integrating the teachings into our lives, and but also we can make aspirational prayers for the teachings to flourish, for ourselves to be able to always meet with qualified teachers and teachings, and for us to be able to take the essence of our lives, in other words, to be able to grasp the opportunity as that are available to us at all times, to, on the one hand, establish virtue as a continuous aspect of our days, and to really abandon negativity completely. And so and so in order kind of like make these prayers, like the Lamrim dedication prayer, that verse where it says, with my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid, etc. And in other words, not just to be kind of wanting to be reborn into a land where the Buddhist teachings are flourishing, but perhaps where they have declined or are gone, that may we be the ones to regenerate the Buddhist teachings in that place, directly or indirectly, in any way we possibly can. And even, if we have like a ignorance on our mind or kind of an unknowingness, but we make that dedication, and that we will be able to do whatever we can to allow for the teachings to flourish, to regenerate that which has been degenerated, etc., in all our future lives.
What does compassion? 지금 소소 때마 증게 될 출발아. 때마 증게 때마 딱 보자게. 아니 될 출발 왔다디 거기 몰음 순제 때문에 왔다 배준 제가 아니 라게 강투도 냠내지. what 다 get 못 해도 what did it.
And so this is, you know, the overall motivation is to protect the teachings, to prevent the teachings from disappearing, etc., through not only our own practice and example, but also through our aspirational prayers.
다가는 생이야 때바 냠내 지게다 아니 저기 댄지기 기보다 때바 냠내 지게 안 되줄래야 제수라지 가브레 양어서 또 지금 내 당보 와서 솜속 기사서这个这四段吧那些这我最空的这先把空的是那一万的钱那这结束了像把那个是人家几多啊先给这个让给出了几把因为开把看要嘛的这个对吧的抓了碰到这个是结束一两钱搞好I didn't finish pen taught to my shows. Subject. Timan order was you con the consequence and the city managing Yawa chet and the Tibasai. And sure color can Tibasai in Magudwa. What then some machina? Yeah, church years love and deep from Santa Chania, want to the causes Yawa chet and they are your monkey to take it.
So it's not only then that we are kind of like inspired by our own practice in dedicating our lives to the Dharma, but also that we're able to open up and rejoice in virtue wherever it takes place, and rejoice in those who are engaging in that virtue. That's very, very important to kind of like on the basis of that, you know, to kind of really and make further aspirations that the teachings, the ways of virtue themselves may flourish and increase. And that we don't want to make the mistaken kind of judgment as beginners. It's very easy, isn't it, to kind of divide the world into kind of that which is spiritual and that which is political, and to kind of have a kind of very judgmental attitude about everything that happens on the political front. But rather to really not make that judgment, to see anybody who engages in positive, virtuous, beneficial actions, to rejoice in what they do there, and to kind of really, you know, make the aspiration that, oh, may I too be able to be as powerfully virtuous as they are, and to kind of like really appreciate the goodness in others as much as we possibly can. And because otherwise it can be very easy, isn't it, to kind of like go around with the kind of label of spiritual person and be kind of like appearing to engage in spiritual activity, whereas in fact you're harboring all of these sort of judgmental attitudes, and in fact, you know, you've allowed mental affliction in the door as well through any little crack they will find in your motivation to kind of contaminate what looks like a dharma, a spiritual activity, but is in fact completely dominated, say, by the 8 worldly concerns, etc.
그래서 집에는 벽을 추교 증결 차샤원에 추교 증결을 하는 기루다 사자의 님마다 가주 계절의 시에체는 드냐 지금 예와의 chen 지저도 네가 그거 배는 도전에다 가야 겨봐요 말이야 다 상하게 아니 지금 남네 제원도 아니 규định 있다 규범 민다와게 개발 잡면서 그걸 지금 상계 좀 되게 아니 추교 집어지자 차되거든 좀더 내서 마다니야 아니 믹스가 된다 시라 규 매개서 아니 야와의 시부지 chen 대 시부지 저와 말바지 장은 뭐지 대고 나와를 차되기도 근데 그건 노트 차되기 요라 노트 차되기 요라 왔다가 이제 출라된 디고 사기도 어디 섭섭 맞잖아.
So for example, you know, there's this tendency to draw distinctions and differences and conflicts within the, say, the 4 main schools of Tibetan Buddhism, the Sakya, the Geluk, and the Nyingma, and the Kagyu. And that, you know, these kind of coming from outside, you know, within those traditions themselves, there isn't any conflict at all. There's a recognition for us that they are kind of like holding different tantric traditions as their main practices, but within the different schools themselves, there's no kind of conflict like that. But kind of people pointing from outside, they like to make these distinctions and say that, you know, one is better and the other is worse or whatever. And so this is kind of very, very silly and also very dangerous, kind of like from these outside observers. So we have to be very careful that we don't make a kind of these mistaken judgments based on the Dharma itself.
그거 지금 동바지 진주 하도도 동아 소대 아니 그 라메 바게 아니 배 규기 남에 찾아 유대 같이 진짜 찾대거라 지금 진짜 찾대거라 다 송단다 지금 가서도 간에 돌아 까불까불 지금 랍 가서 다 소수 송다다 냠용고 돈에 아니 때려 법다 준비 로가지 뭐 되었다 사줄 남가기 남샤다 아니 지금 아니 규대시 조다 라메 뭐 조다 탐자다 지금 진짜 찾더 다 이거 레서도 지금 진짜
And so in terms of the different schools of Tibetan Buddhism having the same root teacher, the Buddha, the same sutras, etc., spoken by the Buddha, and indeed the different commentaries by the great masters, they accept and practice based on the very same, and there's no difference in terms of that. The only difference would be the way in which the teachings are presented, slight differences in terms of people's experience and different dispositions of those listening. But in terms of their adherence to the main tenets of the Buddhist teachings and, for example, the 4 classes of tantras and so on, absolutely the same.
다 이게 남제 야외 공부 토비게 아니 저부 토비에도 지금 진짜 찾도 다디서 아니 마시면 오기 또도 용도 다디가 디바사에 주소를 찾도다 냐마가 아디샬 데베 감데 안 뭐저 치게 자와지 레서 그러나 자제 권샤 아니 자제 나로는 구동 또 마통도 구동 권샤 나로 아니 아디샬 공부를 거라자데와 아니 게 Welcome to Adisha Center. Saja Korala di kaso de sambi 제가 제가 I'm not killing I'm kajuwa saja. 케바 요 말에 가가 사기 좀 되게 제주에 케바 요 말에.
And so in terms of the basis and the paths and the results, these are all these different schools presenting the same path in that sense. And again, I was just recalling that when he was in a Tisha center, at one stage a monk arrived. He was wearing monk's robes, but also below the monk's robes he had some like pants on. And again, I was doing a circumambulation of the stupa sites, and he encountered. Doing the monastery, the center's the Gompa at the center, and he encountered this monk, and again I said, "Hello, welcome to Atisha Center," and the Western monk immediately replied, "No, I'm not Gelugpa, I'm a Kagyu." So again I says, really, we don't make those distinctions. We're all the follower of, we all have the same follower of the Buddha and his teaching. So yeah, no need to make these distinctions.
이래야 코라게 제일 코라게 파르지 뜬 것도 아니 루비나 왜냐면 루비나 파르도 어떻게 얘기해 내가 예보죠 루비나 FM ticket.
So again, I said later he showed me a picture of one of his teachers. It was a Venerable Robina Curtin, and so whether he realized he was an FDMT teacher in the Gluk tradition or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Because 내수시다 맛이 맞지 않고 나서 수색을 좋은 거 봐. 다 되는 디바사에 내가 와. 디바사에 내가.
So it's just saying, pointing out how it's so easy, isn't it, to create negativity in this way. So we have to be careful.
학도도 다다데 지가서 살마다 닝마스 지나 산이 계자데 가서래 귤기 개발에마도 저 초이 개발이 계자 말에 귤 닝발라 닝마스야 귤 사발라 살마스 귤기 개발 책 배주 단단게 조단치요래 어디 뒤토는 산이 개발 체험 거를 뭐도 시부지 전달을 개발 요바 계자 말에.
So sometimes you hear about this old translation schools and new translation schools, and that there the distinctions are made on when these translations took place, not on the content or meaning of these translations. So they were exactly the same. It's just a question of in what century certain translations were made. They were kind of seen to be the translations of the old translation schools, and then the newer translation schools done at a later time. But as far as the content of these translations, absolutely the same, and the message is very, very consistent between them.
년중의 숭그레, 장중의 샘 숭그레, 사모동반이 숭그레, 아니 사조 람가 숭그레, 다야타 가데 파라성가데 보디소, 어다 찍고 진짜 숭그레. 다 찍배주 당당당. 된다. 아니 저거 가서 저기 상하게 냠내 제도 아니 이당비 다 지금 제돈다 도스민다 되네 미게 자롱캄 조다 민다 온게 아니 이당비 나바 민다 지용지요 디코 가서도 가서 tembachi on the mare kasa present on the kasa minda wala that 자롱 til에 조단 거잖아 이담 때 땡 거예요 거 거다 조단 로가시 못 와. 근데 그 똑바뀌다 저부께다 되게 산제 고마토에 집어래. 거 요거도 와. 어다지 저 연대기 배 항상 얘기지 그 시고지 가서도 저와 매비가 되는 자원이라 매비고 강강 가서다 가서도 편집업상 최적의 소외들에 가서 냠뇨적인 내줘배 가서도 냠뇨적인 내줘배 아니 겁나 가서 밥사치도 밥스타 내줘봐 냠뇨 유견지게 냠내봐 냠뇨 유견지게 때봐이나 아니 강가 밥사치로 밥 온 거랬어 이제 밥사치로 밥 온 거랬어.
So in terms of what the content of these different translations are, the old school, the new school, etc. Both translations emphasize renunciation, the mind of enlightenment, the correct view of emptiness. Both have expositions on the mantra Tayata Gate Gate Para Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisattva. Both have all in that sense. They're very consistent in their explanations and importance of these points. There are differences in regard to different meditational deities that are presented in, say, the old school and the new schools. That different explanations as to the functions of the channels, winds, and drops, and so on. But in terms of they're presenting a path to attain the state of enlightenment, for example, to benefit all sentient beings, absolutely consistent in that sense. And therefore, there's no contradiction between these translation schools. As the great master Pandit Losam Choki Gilson says, that from a yogi's experience through their practice, they will come to all arrive at the same point. That those who are genuine in their practice in integrating and assimilating their teachings according to the schools and so on that they have followed will all arrive at the same point.
어디 강갈 다나 장와체 제수이라체 아니 소소소게 냠내 지단데 소소소게 지 가서다 지금 가버고 레다 저와 이거 가는 거 내줄로 가와 어디체 아니 샤바드저도 윤내 통 다나장 제수이라체 어디서 개점 못 어디서
So apart from that one having a particular kind of affinity for one school or another, and therefore you'd like to follow the teachings of that school, that's perfectly fine and acceptable, of course. But otherwise, we must emphasize that we rejoice in the great traditions of all the different schools and all their presentations. We must kind of have that sense of joy and rejoicing in the fact that they are still all present.
다 개와 주제 디바 보고를 배워 잡아서 왔다 들렸잖아. 왔다가 저를 추보고 내사에 내가 누가 어디 쉬고 어디는 다 니바 장주게 선지 표현 개발 시험을 시작. 장주게 선지 표현 삼바. 장주게 선 무효송아. 내가 표현 대다 주의 중세. 장주게 선 고백 가사를 되봐 오전 어디는
And so then the next outline is the more extensive reflection on the benefits of the mind of enlightenment. And this has 4 different subheadings. One is reflecting on the benefits of the mind of enlightenment. 2 is the recognition of what is the mind of enlightenment. 3 is the reasoning behind why such benefits arise. And 4, a praise for the kind of person who habituates to the mind of enlightenment.
다 당부대 가래 당부들을 다 간자 자주가 셈도 배유 삼바스 자주 셈도 배유 삼바들 다 디과 탐다 조세 개와 타다 줍려 봐다 민다 또 개바자 토바 배유 배 시바다 숨자
The first of these is again the first of these was again, this more reflecting on the benefits of the mind of enlightenment. And this is dealt with in terms of 3 subheadings. One is it being the mind which can completely destroy all negativity and has the capacity to establish all virtue. And second of these is the how one attains a special label or name, and then and the significance, the special significance having generated the mind of enlightenment, and explaining the benefits of the mind of enlightenment in terms of example or image.
당부 다 디과 탐제 조세 개와 타다 줍려 봐다 자주가 셈그 남네 잡아이나 남네 잡아는 디과 탐제 좀 아니 개와 탐제 줍려 봐 좀 그랬을 때 딜을 숨잖아 디과 좀봐 개와 쳐 줍려 봐 아니 가서 지다고 되게 줍려 봐 오선 다가자 삽저 숨거나 숨도 와 어디자.
And so the first of these then is the mind which destroys all negativity and has the capacity to establish all virtue. And this has 3 subheadings as well. And one is, of course, this destroying virtue. The second is establishing the supreme, destroying negativity. And the second is establishing supreme happiness. And the third is it having the capacity to establish whatever is desired.
다 당부들 디과 좀바들 자와래 디과 돕체 신도 미세바 얘네 접을 자주 셈님바 계신 관계 쓰기는 봐 줄수.
And so the first of these, then the verse 6 is going to deal with the overcoming or destroying of negativity. And this reads, hence virtue is perpetually feeble, the great strength of evil being extremely intense. And except for a fully awakening mind, what other virtue, by what other virtue will it be overcome?
아니 지금 다 되게 동사다 지사되다 좀 뭐지 수고요 다 간자 지금 디바다에 저도 변의 지금 사제가 송랍 로에다 다 가이네 요거라다 디바다에 저도 실 지바다 용거라다 겨 가리나 두고 용거와 얘나야 자주가 셈게 셈바지 마죠나 이 톱쳐보 요 말이야 다 자주가 셈게 셈베 톤에 저도 다 아니 지 가소라다 지 가소라다 톱쳐보 싶죠 되지 니가 쳐보 싶 차도야지 요거들 봐 하도 더 차차거나 동지 도배 셋업디 녀랑게 공부요래 녀랑게 공부 열때 이나 동지 도배 셋업 공부디 탐색협이 줄어 조금 도와 이 가리 맞춰서 자주 그서 말씀 정말로다 자주 생각 말씀 탐색협이 줄어 조금 도와 다 되게 가서 동지 도배 셋업 ਪਰ 동지 도배 셋업 주고게 녀몽 녀부 제도고도 실적 녀부 제도고 도와 실적 녀부 제마도 가리 좋아해서는 다 자주 그서 매다 주도 나 자주 그서 여봐 이나 아니 근데 돈이 더 비싸도 쉐두고 있는 거 제도도 봐. 당까지 어때들 당까지 자주 그 셈됐다. 먼저 도지 삼바 거나 디바 당으로 도지 삼바 거나 디바 당고 자주 그 셈 쓰면 거나 도지 삼바 거면 자주 생각 맞으면 또 있으면 냠이 차고 말아. 좋아. 딱 누워니도 산지에 고마토고도 스카즈는 소소이네 계제 장면 숨나서와 안에 코알을 내는 지금들은 샘제가 동에 나와서 수금도 뒤체도 한번 뉴도 안에 산지에 고마토고 있으든 장주 샘 현대미터 덮치고 있겠네. 냠내지도 안에 상황 최차기 좋아. 이번에 상황 최차기 좋아. 좋아. 그때 상황 이번에 이니 힌두 그 상황 차리면 남배 상황 차요 말아.
So here is talking about the difference between virtues that are not accompanied by a motivation of generating the mind of enlightenment, and those that are, and saying that yes, we have, we can engage in virtuous activity in one way or another, but when it is not accomplished by and accompanied by the mind of enlightenment attitude, then it lacks a great deal of power to it. And that this is really has to be understood when we talk about those who are proceeding on the path without the attitude of the mind of enlightenment, such as the hearers and solitary realizer practitioners. They have this quality of the wisdom realizing emptiness. That wisdom is theirs, but since it is not accompanied by the mind of enlightenment, their capacity is limited, and they will attain the state of liberation, but can't get beyond it. And that wisdom realizing emptiness has the capacity to deal with the deluded obscurations, but not the obscurations to omniscience. And it's only a mind, an emptiness that is accompanied by the mind of enlightenment that can eradicate these obscurations to omniscience. And so that's essential also for one's success on the Vajra path, the secret tantric path, that with the mind of enlightenment, one can genuinely make that practice. One can quickly attain that state of enlightenment, as is stated in the kind of a motivation for entering into this tantric path. But without the mind of enlightenment, one enters a tantric path which is just more akin to a Hindu tantra rather than Buddhist tantra.
semjenge ane ta ka dewa thamje dema tunge thamje de dewa ta ne 지금 sigo yor bata 지금 sigo ta de je ane semje la mi be diwa dawa ma se sanje la mi be diwa de ta yor bata sanje ko ko ba la semje la phamba jwe ma de yor ma de ane di ko ba ane so je du mo de ane sanje la mi be diwa de ta do sa ba
So here, when we talk about the eradication of negativity, there's no better means than to develop the mind of enlightenment. As it says there, that by what other virtue will such a negativity be overcome? Only by the virtue of the mind of enlightenment. And so here also we see no distinction between the virtues or harms indeed done to Buddhas and sentient beings. And so both are essential to us. And we have to focus on sentient beings with that same care as we would towards an enlightened being, and to kind of focus on developing that mind of enlightenment for their sake, for that holding them to be that important.
top shinto chebo ta chobon la sobe ta diba shinto top chebo ta je ta chobon le diba top chwa chi yo mar wata ani diga de chobon de nyanga chebo ka tu ine yong chojo ta chobon si de chobon si do nga sanje ko sura keling mes ko mare chobon si de pena le de ta kya nga ji kemala le chobon ko diba sa ngore 타바다 탐제 케말레네 초봉 그 디과 싸운 거다. 거뒤에 용하지래 또. 삽삽 맞지나. 와다 초봉 그 초봉스의 배자 소리 좀 빠네. 배자는 게 켈링 메스 라부고요 말이. 뒷방이 라부고요 말이. 딱 그네 이네. 아니 지금 배자들 돌아 지금 잘라고 뒤에 자네 초봉 차온 것도 그런 만큼 제 초봉 딱 초봉을 내가 용 내라시 들어가다. 용 내라시 들어가다. 거뒤에 용 조조치. 용 조조 차들어가다 초봉을 내. 초봉을 내. 그래. 아니 도바다 담지 마소네 초봉을 내 사기를 다 초봉을 내 거뒤에 있네. 용 조조 차들 더 빼고 싶지. 용 조조치. 아니 심지어 마구바 전에 초봉을 내서 다 심지어 세와 전에 초봉을 내서 다 초봉을 내도 그네네 용 되지. 용 조조 차로 왔다. 그래 다 쳐다 밑에 봐지 어디 초봉을 내려고 또 왔다 간제. 그래 더 간제 어디 다 초봉을 나서베 디과 또 디과서 또전 신도 미세와 되네. 아니 저배 장주가 셈님바 겨와 시야 관계 쓰기도 받다 겨와 근데지겠다 딜레 하가지다 가져 쓰기도 봐 요거 됐어. 요거 미주에 나서 요거 말했어. 그래 다 년주 동에 년주에서 년주 중앙 사바 다지 치마 균주제 장주가 셈 공발라 셀지에게는 주바창고 스타까지 년주 계획다 년주 계획에는 중간 사바 디 아니 다 니부터 없이 거는 딱답지에 아니 균주제다 균주는 다 간지 장주가 셈 공부 디 아니 제도 되나 다 장주가 셈 공부 제도 되는 남의 친구です다 지다 디바다야라 니부터 없이 거네 니부터 없이 그거 다 간지 디바 사바디 다 지다 말리고 다 제일되고 다 간지 가서 니도 중간 사바 다지 치마 균주에 채도 다 장주가 셈 공부 내 하가지 면서 제도 되는 남의 친구です어때
And so here it talks about the powerful negativities that are unbearable in the text here. That except for the fully awakened mind, no other virtue will be able to overcome those negativities. And so it asks the question, can any other virtue overcome them? No, they can't overcome them. And so this is the fully comprehensive mind of enlightenment we're referring to. And it's then talking about too in the previously accumulated negativities on our mind stream that might send us to the lower realms is purified through generating the mind of enlightenment. Not only that, but that continuum of the possible rebirths in lower realms is cut through to the power of the mind of enlightenment. And so we should do whatever we possibly can to cultivate this mind of enlightenment. Saying here that in terms of those negativities, saying these great negativities, powerful negativities, it's referring in many respects to anything that can be referred to, fall under the category of the forsaking the Dharma. And so this is extremely prevalent and common. And there's great danger to anybody who is on a spiritual path that one is accumulating such negativity. So any kind of a statement where we say we don't accept the law of cause and effect, or we don't accept past and future lives, or we don't accept the theory of omniscience or anything like that. This is accumulating the negativity, the very heavy negativity of forsaking the Dharma. But it can be also, even showing disrespect to a text, or placing it on the ground, or stepping over it, or any kind of disrespect. So we can see how this kind of negativity can happen at any time. Very, very common. Or any harm to sentient beings, since one of the main tenets of Buddhism is non-harm. So that is a case of disrespecting or forsaking the Dharma. And so anything that is not in harmony with Dharma principles is really forsaking the Dharma. And so we have to be aware of this. And of course, when we have a negativity, we can engage in the practice of purification, based on the 4 opponent powers, etc., and purifying. And if that is accompanied by that motivation of the mind of enlightenment, of course, that can be very effective. But in general, we say that in terms of overcoming these negativities, there's nothing that can surpass the mind of enlightenment.
他感觉这个说了这个可说了，他感觉讲究个sem kom 是的，俺的这个让给就下来要吧，俺的没了这，俺的这个把当真的，但接触那的呀，我的刚刚的结果给这嘛的，当我说个就了 sem 上过的呀，top 解决呢，俺的中间三罗单的，中间名啊，对的，当时两家老什么，真的可能三罗单的讲究个 sem 嘛，给我的给嘛这，哎，给嘛都kom的。검네 아니 저 검네 아니 저 간자 저 되게 냠내 쟤네 아니 저我的那个大在呀讲究个生活法在讲我大的觉得俺那让个地方的地方大对呀俺那这个操作地方也拉起不就用的这个我是不该制造那了钱呢拍把这个中马都把人那样俺那说苦叫起来点的讲明这方面讲究个生活吧了点呢俺那告诉的大概这个这个操作地方拉起不用土也去用土哎你在用是做呢哎你春节场所呢哎你我是怎么打也是在用出不啊哎你当我人呢哎你给啊像你们差不多像我是在制作那这的让给嘛我说了呀考到的这个拍拖个有吧人呢呀俺第学了呀要么我嘛我说这可是那个再做没吧一张你吧做没吧一张当说你吧要把这个做完的啊你给刚才写吧呢给这个推荐了出来中国的话的推荐了出来中国的话我到这个的就当不讲的话他再做出来哎那那推荐有吧呢啊你可说个这大概这个你这把老说吧他呢制作下去了说吧开始判断截图呢他也不晓得吧也不晓得对面那样我这嘛做完了啊你抄起来判断过呢抄起来那个呀嘛我就要这个多要这个样要么这个就嘛我就要这个他这个感觉他们这想把主管是个的这家切上贵阳问呢上么当他可个样想当不再做一点就不能做再做一点就不能做我的现在或者是
So for us then, for anybody really who's really developing this mind of enlightenment, that we have to be kind of realistic too. Like, we may think, it's telling me that I should be generous and therefore to give everything I have. But that is not necessary. Of course, practice generosity to your own capacity, but be realistic and better. And to actually really understand the reasonings why one is cultivating such a profound attitude, and to really study the cultivation of that mind of enlightenment, alongside the 6 causes and 1 effect instruction and an instruction of equalizing and exchange of self and others and so on. Really familiarize yourself and understand, in the context of the mind of enlightenment, what does it mean to accumulate virtue and to purify negativity, to really develop these beautiful qualities of love and compassion, that ones that really empathize with real human beings, real sentient beings in our kind of milieu, and to kind of like develop sort of a wealth of virtue on the one hand, so as to then such a time when we may have a wealth of goods and money and so on, wherein then we can really start practicing generosity in a much more meaningful way, and therefore give to our heart's content. And so it's kind of really talking about really placing these development, the cultivation of the mind of enlightenment in a big mind perspective. A really big mind perspective, like I was thinking like a Buddha, where we talk about not just the development of these beautiful qualities of loving kindness and compassion and so on, but also the reasoning behind it, how it's accompanied by that sense of reasoning and understanding that not all the conditions won't be always conducive to allowing that mind to flourish, but therefore I have to think about how to transform obstacles as into conducive conditions for the mind of enlightenment, and that requires reasoning and analysis from our side. And so and also to at the same time bear in mind how powerful and prevalent and sneaky really are mental afflictions, and that aspect to us, and to kind of really have a kind of like a protective attitude to not allowing those mental afflictions to in any way taint one's motion and drive towards cultivation of the mind of enlightenment.
다른 장주가 심배 전에 아니 지가서도 다 가서 초신 세 때문에 아니 심배 탐색이 도도 아니 사제 고마토베치도 다저 초사 직장지야 다가 이제 야라도 뭐 면대도 제바전도 초사 직장지야 와다들의 전 다가 이제 똑바 맞기와기 장주스 맞기와기 기바 코네 콘도 피해 와다들의 들의 전에 가자 저 소수기 아니 지금 제특주지네 아니 삼배 돈에 다 강자치제 동성과 동체부 지금 그가 아니 저거 최바 뚜잖아 아니 패바 뚜게 그래서 저 초주에 살려 자주 써봤던 저 최바 피해 아니야 아니 지금 소속이 지금 동이 도배 세담들 되게 고아 그제 이거 지금 상매가 최바로 뚜네 피해 다 되게 되게 그거 용적으로 왔다 되랬잖아 되랬지는데 아니错납 치부 좋니 그 배는 차샤불에 지금 mel다고 리트널 쇼 되게 아니 지금 배턴에 때나 차제 가야 매겐지 다 삼배 턴에 아니 땡에 증게 아니 냠내 떡쳐부 유에다 아니 자주가 섬다 이거다 거치 세질라 산제 고마 두두예지 저도 다 이거들 가서도 가서도 다 지소 파지 주다 되게 냠내 이거 치여 봐 치스도 뭐 지소 나라 용한전에 배 미래를 칼라테 뒤치고 이렇게 되는 거야. 그래서 이게 저분을 내내 계속 파지도 냐면 차사 지도와. 나가 이제 냐면 그제 용수 좋아했다. 제가서도 아니 제가서도다. 제가 가서도 나가 이제 소주 고마 톱 트위스도와. 이제 소주 거 집에 냐면 제고서 이게 지소 나라 유전에 자리 주전에 집마다 이렇게 저 그것도 이거 사람들 삼로고 전에 냐면 아니 루가 짠롱 이게도 엉교네 아니 땡에 진기 톱게 아니 그게 그 냠내 톱쳐보 제야도 봐 미국에 관에 뒤전에 톱쳐보 수지 뭐 준비 파지 용수 톱 받지 제도 봐 또 근데 사이에 좀 되려다 근데 되시를 왔다 지다 산제 개체 장면 숨라 소바데 초사다 되게 저다제 용이열라 아니 다 두자 투모 어디 잡아 있네 아니 지가서데 지가 로도 가와체 아니 되네 가서데 뭐바도 다 가서데 술도 아니 토라 뭐바도 상기베 잡아데 두바 가서 다데 시바사가다에 토라 되나 상기베 잡아도 그래도 다 투모 두자 난 걸에 지소 파지 두고 냠래 치여 봐 얘네 좀 대갑라 마 지금 지소를 집었다가 집을 기다리게 루주 계속 가요 말와 얘네 집에 냠래 먹고 이제 다지 겨워 먹을 거는 나요 때 얘네 답변은 지금서 상기면 잡았다면 갈 거도 주저를 때문에 가면 얘네 또 거기서 이가서는 때도 찌라 되네 아니 가서 랑게 냠새고 돈에 제일 요바지를 도와
So it's this question of then this combination of the mind of enlightenment together with the development of this wisdom realizing emptiness, to be able to do whatever we possibly can to accumulate virtue on the basis of that twin approach of imbuing one mind with the other and engaging in any kind of activity, and to make aspirational prayers to bring this about, to do whatever we can to kind of marry these two minds together as a very powerful way of creating really great merit really powerful stores of merit, as well as eradicating great stores of negativity. So it's important to be able to think in this kind of grand sense, this powerful sense. Taking example, for example, of the great Geshe Milarepa, who was in kind of like worldly sense, while looking at him, you can see he was just a beggar who had absolutely nothing. But in terms of a practitioner, he was incredibly rich, transforming his inner world into the state of enlightenment in one lifetime. And so here, he wasn't going about down in the villages passing out alms and acts of generosity. He didn't have that, even though he was engaged in the perfection of the 6 perfections, the first of which is the perfection of generosity. But understanding that this is a mental attitude, the mind of generosity here was perfected, and he's being able to facilitate the channels, winds, and drops within his own mind body system to reach that state of enlightenment in one lifetime. And as such, he serves as a very powerful example of somebody who is combining both the mind of enlightenment with that wisdom realizing emptiness to really quickly attain that state of enlightenment. And so here it's important for us to the Buddha, to see the Buddha also as someone who, even though it's stated, taking 3 countless great eons to accumulate the necessary merit and eradicate the necessary negativities to attain that state of enlightenment. And even though there's no kind of tradition, as it were, of the perfecting the 6 perfections on the course of the path that he demonstrated, yet that there is this inner perfection taking place at all times that is at the heart of Buddha's practice in any case. And the same for us in terms of developing these attitudes of the mind of enlightenment combined with the wisdom realizing emptiness in our motivation, in our actions, in our dedications, is something that is an inner job as well.
아니 공부 탐에도 배웠으나 아니 집에 냥을 다 찍어라 또 해서 공부 탐에도 배웠으나 집에 냥을 저 마지 미토부터 그 매바 차이 기자 말와 또 해서 아니 공부 탐에도 배워야 되는 집에 냥을 다 찍어 쓰여 봐.
So when we talk about the taking of the practice of generosity to its perfection in the context of the 6 perfections, we're talking about developing that mind of generosity to its perfections, not necessarily that of eradicating the poverty of all beings. No, it's developing that mind of generosity, perfecting that mind of generosity.
아니 너밖에 유명해 기타 가야 말이야 랑게 아니 지가 소리 다 냠내디 온게 엔제 용수도 맞잖아 사도 아니 타치 마스거 봐.
So patience is another example that of course this cannot mean eradicating all those who are intent on harm in the world, but rather perfecting one's own patience and bringing that practice of non-harm and patience to its perfection within. That is what is meant by the perfection of patience. So again, it's kind of like really understanding that this is an inside job, an inner world that we are cultivating and perfecting, rather than wanting to eradicate all harm externally or all poverty externally. We are owning our own practice as an inner practice.
다 니바 대화 초두는 바니스다 대화 초두는 바니 개와도 말하고 제가 토한나지 되니 배봤어 되니 체매 기회 초나지 내줘 달라니도 토버tus.
So the second subheading was that capacity to establish the supreme happiness, and so this is verse number 7. All the Buddhas who have contemplated for many eons have seen it to be beneficial, for by it the limitless masses of beings will quickly attain the supreme state of bliss.
개바 잠에바 도마다 심젤라 페바제베 탈라다 심젤라 페바제 탑 약슈데 가리 샤스는 라도 공발제베 다 되고 베데 가서다 공발제네다 되게 제바제네 아니 도안나게 도바산제 좀된 남게다 간자 자주가 셈게바 되니 다 자주가 셈게바 될래 샤바좀 모두 셈게바 되니 심젤라 페바스네다 심젤라 페바디 섹션 and 셈게바 되네 체메바다 잠에베 기부 촌남게스 대화 초 산제 대화 양사 대라도 어느 토바 전류에서 최인변은 셈도 콤발을 배버차고
So here saying these countless mother sentient beings, countless numbers of mother sentient beings, and what is the best means of being able to benefit them. And according to the Buddhas, who have contemplated for many eons, that they have come to the conclusion that it is this very mind of enlightenment that is the best means of benefiting them. And so this, in terms of sentient beings, that this mind is kind of like in terms of its whatever time, whatever number of sentient beings there are, that is the best and the best means of easily and quickly being able to provide that happiness of enlightenment to that supreme happiness to all sentient beings. And therefore, we should make an effort to really habituate to this attitude.
다 대사 맞아요. 지금 다 심지어 소인에 랑라 펴봐 주고 펴봐 좀더 매번 수가요 말봐. 랑라 펴봐 좀더 심지어 강갈이요. 펴봐 좀서 대화 좀더 강갈이요. 거기서 구조자 들을 지거로. 다 펴봐 주변 랑라 펴봐 주변 문제지. 자주 그셈 공발을 하가 랑라 펴봐 주변 미도 왔다. 이런 거라서 몽배워 온게. 랑 전세잖아. 소소를 펴도 그 맞죠. 신 전세잖아. 아니 소소를 동으라고 맞죠. 동어서 젠 가서 건배 온게 젠진 온게 용되기도 와. 용되고等我저 삼로 띵사부 마다니. 삼로 가서래. 딱 가서래. 가서래. 저 다들 가래. 당어저 다들 저 가서래. 삼로 락바도 따니. 야나 저 가서래. 저 옹비셰바. 옹셰기 삼로가 토네. 다가 이제 센서를 내봐 소리 되네. 저는 저도 소소를 용하게 여배 소리 셰잖아. 소소를 용하게 여배 소리. 아니 랑스나 개체부터는 아니 팬토고 입어서도 이내 랑 개체부터 지에데 셴 개체부터 이나 아니 다 랑을 펴봐 쳐도 줘 봐. 요해지 임바지 다 왜 저다 되려도 인다 주다데 랑을 팬토고 이나 랑 개체부터나 랑을 팬토고 내 봐지 랑을 팬토 셴 개체부터나 랑을 팬토고 이바게 다 가서라 삼루기 배수로 가서 사이콜로지스래 dende게 삼로게 안 도당 것에 주다 제부 용다디 들이도 랑게 좀 쓰도 헛되나 알아 팽거 요바 제거 요때 뒷몽배 온기 젠데 받체 요에도 소소로 누구 요바체 다 소소로 팽바 문에데 랑레 셴게 쳐왔잖아 아니 되고요라 아니 소소로 팽바 두고 요바체 다 자주 그 두고 요바체 다 투바상게 좀 되는 남게 개발에 개발보다 당지지도 왔다 뒤니 때 봐지 초치는 초시 맞이라 삼로다 근데 당 저거 좋아 랑뢰 당거다 랑 탐지 좀 더 주고
So here, what the Buddhas over these eons have come to understand, through their own analysis have come to the conclusion, is that when it comes to really what is most beneficial, even for oneself, is the attitude of helping others, benefiting others, this mind of enlightenment. And so here, when we talk about sentient beings and we talk about benefit, we have this kind of like idea that they are there to help me. I must get that benefit from them, and saying the opposite really of that. There's nothing better than the attitude of setting out to be a benefit to others. And that we can see how we are so dominated in that sense of, wanting to only considering that, what I do for myself is beneficial. But if I'm dedicating myself to others, then that's going to bring about some sort of loss to me. I lose out in some way. And so that's self-cherishing talking. And so we, in the Buddhists, what they pointed out is that's a mistaken kind of equation, really. We haven't understood what is truly beneficial for ourselves. And so here we have to take away this idea of, my importance and really placing it on seeing the importance of others. And that therefore, it's kind of like really talking about the actuality of the situation, and it's sort of like an inability to get beyond the sense of shallow thinking, a kind of sensory level interpretation of our world. But we need to get deeper than that, and deeper than that, to see what the real equation that the Buddhists have concluded as being the most beneficial thing to do. So we have the idea that, what is beneficial to me is me cherishing myself, and that what the actual conclusion is, the actual equation is that what's most beneficial to me is me cherishing others as more important and wanting to be of benefit to them at every possible turn. And so it's kind of like saying that, when I'm thinking that benefit is only something that comes through cherishing myself, it's kind of like a clouded thinking. It's a thinking dominated by a certain ignorance. And that when you get below that, deeper down, you actually see what the Buddhists have actually concluded, that in order to really help yourself, dedicate yourself to helping others. That is the real equation for happiness.
What did that and Chitane Tarapena Zambolina, Mimako in the Yore. Yes, Shella Pendona, Nala Capsa Carrag, some such Yorba. Yet the Chever and Nala Carrag, some such. Because Jamba the Ninja come to social and Beba Soch. Ineata, Unatane table, Sanje the Curtis Chungsha. That Shella Jamba the Ninja, Shella Jatu the same Gobatine, Jebu, Jimmy Yons of the Sanje Gomata, that's what I did. Goveda Simja Tamjala Pemba to be a cheto. Now, Narasu Tanda, Hadia, Yorba. In a Simjala Pemba to be Kobashige, that Deva Sanja, the Tata Sanja, Shibatizo, that Konazo, Jimmy Yonzoni. Rashiniga, the touch Bajeta, to be new way Yons, Rashiniga, the touch Batum dead. What the Kabaju with the Takaja, Richie the Yoda. Yes, Shella Pemba Tuna, Ye Chaba the Ninja Kona, Nala Chapa Carraga. Ye Chibata and Nala Carraga, Cousin Modula Cousin capitalism Surata, Songi, Chepzangi, some of the Suri or Bata. In a Tata, we Nesula, social chapter to what? Casa Samba Shende the round Shala to the Chedabucha Soedra. Some year the Sheng de Sangu Yorda, Sosu Dente, Casa Shala to Mongodas. Shala. Shola, so to do that to Mongodas. What somebody said this somewhere that to be the social to that shall to Mongodas. Whether that's socially keep it out the India, so keep it into some Matang Korea. Let the Namil Rama watching. He never enough and it's able to go to quite a Jordan. Let the Namil Rawa Kate and it because of the Tabachibichu in Namle Chagmutua. Tabachibichu in Namle de la Nala Digi Younger and Nala Young sometimes did maybe for that. Said Lel Sociology Park Tabatuna Tunga Pan over the Samsa. Yana Dilla than any Nami table than you would have something. Then they're all making it. Some new don't have making it. To be social cover 2 young age. Could do Madu and Rawa, you make it a marwa. Could you talk that daughter Mododrua? Rawa Kana any good you talk that Mebach and any Matu Chadua. The budget.
So we can see how in this world, in the worldly sense, that those who engage in helping even ourselves, like often is the case, in order to help somebody else, we always have this idea, if not even the actual outspoken statement of what's in it for me. We always kind of have this expectation of getting something back. And that this is something that is really counteractive and not in any way harmonious with any kind of a Buddhist act of generosity. So here's kind of saying, and we have this idea as well, like if I'm engaging in loving kindness and compassion, what's in it for me? What do I get out of it? And that if I'm just acting like this and I get nothing out of it, what value is in it for me as well? So it's kind of like understanding that again, the deeper understanding must be present. Understanding that there's a much more profound reason for our acting in these positive, noble ways. That there is a result of full and complete enlightenment as a result, and that here to understand also that this any sort of benefit, the benefit that is brought to other sentient beings has been the key driver for all Buddhas of the past, those who are attaining Buddhahood now, and all the Buddhas of the future. They've worked out that the road to enlightenment is paved by these deeds of benefit to others without any expectation for them. And so it's kind of like they all got this, and so they've all attained the state of enlightenment, but we're still here because the benefit that we engage in, the acts of generosity that we engage in are more akin to business, more akin to our adherence to this capitalistic society where we always expect something in return for any act of benefit or any act of generosity. And so here that we must really see this kind of expectation of payback, of return, of benefit even, as a real obstacle to that virtue that we're trying to create. It actually compromises it in a very serious way. As Jay Rinpoche Namso Kapil was saying, just engage in virtue, helping others. The benefit that is to you comes like as a side effect. It's there. It's implicit. No need to emphasize it. No need to call it out. And especially as a Mahayana practitioner, we must beware of expectation of return for any act of benefit or generosity that we engage in, and we must be able to kind of really be mindful that if there is any sense of wishing for payback, that it is something that immediately compromises that act of virtue itself.
고들다 가져 펜바 두베들라 렌다 나미가 라와메바 로 렌다 나미 데데 제베이나 안 갈들이 구샵 요거레 아니 추데데 양갈 데다 하우스 펜도 지그레 삼삼 야나 딜라데네 오 지가소데 깨와 야보시 랭기레 삼삼 오다데네 펜바 잡아 다가랑게다 펜바 제토바 다가랑 지게 거다 다가랑
So we have to in trusting in
산제 고마토베치 로 생기도 좀
And so trusting in the law of cause and effect here, that when we engage in any act of virtue or benefit towards another, we don't bring to mind this kind of like a need for payback for that action, any kind of sense of increased respect for that action, or indeed even the virtue for that action. We keep out of our thinking. It's not necessary that the benefit that is accrued will lead to the state of enlightenment itself, dedicating it all to that state of enlightenment so that one will be better able to benefit all others. And so it's kind of like really understanding the importance of sentient beings and the cherishing of sentient beings that we do this. It's like a service from our point of view.
But 상계 소소 상계 디레모도 상계 가서데 미타도로다 미타 상게 셀라 펴마 타치버 주베치다 셀라 펴마 타치베 주베치도 아니 산제 고마 마두 타면도 산제 고마 셀라 펴마 주베치도 뒤에 탑지리도.
So when we talk about this motivation to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, we must always understand that the most important part of that is to benefit all sentient beings. The attainment of enlightenment is the means by which we can best be able to benefit sentient beings. So that's what it is. It's a means to an end, this attainment of enlightenment. The end being, we are in the best position to benefit sentient beings.
Today the Ningji Semjela Mi Shirabi Zokshala Mixing. Ningji Semjela Mi Shirabi Zokshala Mix.
So it said that when contemplating compassion, we focus on sentient beings. When we contemplate wisdom, the focus is on the completion of the collections to attain enlightenment.
What is that? They Shanama do in the Jodo. Do that? Did another visit in a Hito?
So again, it says we leave it there. As you can see, time has kind of escaped on us again, and this is the lot of our short life. That life just zooms by like that.
What is it? What is it? In a day, some shot and that Namjun General do the Lamatua was said about it, and Rangi Chimola, Nianjong the Johnson, the young Tawa to get the summer stanch and Nianjongi, Sunjet, Jua Bema, Tamakiwa, then and it don't need to be set up compassion, and it's because of the time, because of the making watch compassion, and it then some time the Sanja Comado Tamada to be inside the compassion, and it take the same thing, and the targeting watch the Juso some such a then, but the Lama of the target you the Kusu would have started so the Chavatan, Tambukas pet, and so they never knew. Shoot, so because of should a Sunday Comamato with the chest from the Yamashu, so the Kawako, what the chat.
So we bring our mind to the figure we are contemplating in front, the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, and our preparation of a suitable seat on our own crown to invite the Buddha there. So we develop, bring about the lotus mandala seat through our recollection of renunciation and contemplating this idea based on the knowledge of all cyclic existence being in the nature of suffering, wishing to engage a definite emergence from that state. From that thought arises this lotus seat mandala. And then through contemplating this me or I who was wishing to attain that state of enlightenment, to liberation, looking for that sense of I in the body and mind, reaching a point of not finding it, the mere absence of the object of negation. From that contemplation of wisdom arises the sun disk mandala. And then from the notion of wanting to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, that mind of enlightenment itself, it really arises this moon disk mandala. And so we have prepared our seat and we issue the invocation verse. So glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my head, on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. This is recited thrice. At the end of the first, the figure begins to move towards our crown. At the end of the second, reaches the seat. And at the end of the third, we know that the Buddha is firmly established there until we attain that state of enlightenment. And we rejoice in that reality.
Misama Chova Lasoba, Setia, Singama, Tomana, Shetibacho, Nani, Matacha, some such a Tebe Ale, the Mavo, the Setia. Rangi Casa Tebe Ala, is the Mavo Chova, and Telma, Chimted, Rangi Nagona Sana, 되고 정말 주도 가지는 소마 제대로 증거 토마면 되고 나 나지서 난 두가 홀래 네 마음이 되지도 두가 홀래요 요새 좀 아니 그 두가 홀 요새 좀 아니 나게 두가 홀 니가 홀라 마 되지 버자체네 아니 나게 이 거에서 되고 낙sem 요새 lokal 소마다 제대로 증거만 대가마 토마면 서버 다지 만들고 나니 되는지 삼사 어디는 고마셔도 야고요 어디지
And so at this point, if one has the time, one can pause in the visualization to recite the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha, and then also to engage in the descending nectar light meditation, so that we see the figure on our crown marked by the syllables Om Ah Hum, and that beginning with the Om, the light rays, white light rays emanating, coming down through our crown, down through our central channel, and purifying all negativities associated with physical negativities, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, etc., that we have engaged in since beginningless time. And that these then, having been purified and visualized from the at the throat of the figure on our crown, red light descending down through our crown, down through our central channel, focusing on speech negativities and that we have accumulated since beginning this time, and eradicating all those. And then finally, from the heart, from the hung at the heart, again, light rays emanate down through our crown, down through our central channel, dealing with all of the mental negativities like covetousness, malicious intent, wrong view, etc., that have been mentally accrued since beginning this time. And so this really affects a very complete purification of all those negativities, and we feel really enlightened and in a mood of rejoicing following that.
그렇죠. 다가리시야 지워 어쩌마 두가고 순간에 위해서 두세 가르마르 팅수 순간에 뒤집도 위해서 좀 때는 바샤다 저 맞장수 선자 어떻게 고마시 저 어떻게
And then following that, we can visualize the combination of all the light descending from all three syllables simultaneously, with the white, red, and blue mixed to purify all the imprints of those negativities since beginning this time. And again, we rejoice in how effective that is.
어떻게 아니 되네 아니 지금 가서도 야라 두번 멘테다 저 피는 어떻게 소사티 같은 게 대체 어떻게 아니 되네 랑기 닝갈라 어다 되기는 실제는 연주가 셈 삼로스다 되는 연주 녀버주 셈 녀버 로티 아니 닝디 빼마다 되지라 주수 삼사차 되네 가서도 다 지나고 쭉 컨디션 버이네 다가는 시 되게 심제 탐제 산제 고마 두고 있어 나디 가봐도 째죠 많이 봤다가나 갈아 셉샤니 된대기 예배 롯 다가나 아니 니메 기고지 또 썼었자 되는 심제 탐제도 산제 고원이와 마도 지금도 토마치기 써서 롯가 이 다다지다 숙청보지 깨답체 아니 된대기 예배 롯 다가나 다가나한테 아니 나외 김고지를 교수 썼었자 아니 그가 반대자가 나바도 다기 민가 빼면서 그래 구조도 그래서 쓰는 담배 가서 때 쓰는 님에 가서 쇼 수명을 때주셔 산재 고마마도 다 제소 야고쇼 조소 섭섭해 아니 닝데 남주기 닝내단 인터넷 엔티 간들 도지가고 쟁아바 체가지게 근데 카겐디겠죠 어디 인터넷만 어디에 고바시 아니 디 타고 아니 가서 다 들면서 어느 방서 다도 어느 것들을 숨고 왔더니 가서 다다디 가서 자매 nga omtar dar so omtar dos tene tende nga in the squad ticket what it is commercial hello
That's all. So yeah, so that oh yes, at the end of that process of the descending nectar light meditations, the purification meditations, then, if, again, time permitting, we offer a mandala and 7-limb practices at that point. And that then we continue with the visualization. Here now at our heart center, we begin the preparation of of the seat to invite the Buddha down through our central channel to abide there. Again, the process from the contemplation and renunciation of that sense of definite emergence from cyclic existence, establishing the lotus seat mandala, and then this I wanting to attain enlightenment and so on to benefit all sentient beings and all internal and external phenomena likewise. And that I we say, where is that? How is that seemingly established externally or objectively? We have to check this out for ourselves, and reaching that point of the mere negation of the object of negation, and seeing that that is not the case, establishing the sun disk mandala seat. And then this notion of attaining the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient being, and that taking personal responsibility of I will be the one to attain that state of enlightenment to benefit all sentient being, and thus develop the aspiration to enlightenment, that mind of enlightenment, that establishes then the moon disk mandala seat. And again, we make the invocation verse of an invitation of glorious and precious root guru. Come take your lotus and moon disk seat placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainment of body, speech, and mind. And again, this is recited thrice. At the end of the first, the figure moves down through our crown, down through our central channel. At the end of the second recitation, arrives at this pre-prepared seat at our heart center. And at the end of the third, we have this knowledge of their remaining there until we attain the state of enlightenment. We pause to rejoice in that wonderful news. And then the petals of the lotus fold over. The figure sealed by a 5-pronged vajra at the tip, and then they are encircled by the mantra of the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri of wisdom in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination in a clockwise direction.
아니 되네 다 가져 저기 닝기 위해서 아니 라마 투베 오보 슈바틸레 위에서 꿀레 위에서 빠도 배웠다 고속도로 위에서 빠도 배웠거든 랑게 집어내 간데가 발로 왜기 참네 다 가져 저 맞잡아 매버자 빼자 롱나로 빠 왜기 참네 아니 랑게 가서 다 토마 매버를 사베다 가서도 디바데 디바 컨디션 와이나다 지금 가서 룡아 이숨제로 디바데 디바 그냥 소소다베 돈바데 가와 전주스베 라바데 가와 상하게 답지데 가와 다가듯이 제베 카나마도 왔다 라진 카나마도 베다 또나 제베 카나마도 라진 카나마도 네바 컨디션 싸요바 이나야 세디엄 생가마 디가마 다 토마메바는 사베 디바데 디바 컨디션 요바 이나야 다 간제 지가서다 다 시와시에서 매버 차수 삼사 난 다가내 생게 아니 최주베 개개 소소 류 대당 매바데 류 강에 다가내 셈라야 직도 대당 매바 강에 잡아 되게 요번에 되게 단제 안베 시와치에서 다가내시 자 롱티레 교가리요 디견 장네 아니 가르서 다 지금 가나 단제 다바람시 바지 차도 바치 다가제 탐에게 낭식 교연 되게 받자네 다 뉴도 산제 고마 토바 탐에게 낭식 교연 치슈레 난 뒤에서 뒤견 탐제 장네 아니 지금 다바람 좀 바시 차도와 야부시우 총수 선서다 지금 다다도 몇바 이제래 와도 몇바 이제 그 수익 파 꼬미 어디에 고바시
And then from within that enfolded lotus leaves, the figure of the Buddha who has arrived there is kind of in the mode of light, and really powerful lights begin to come out through the lotus petals to pervade every aspect, every atom of our body mind, from the crown of our heads to the soles of our feet. This light permeates through to our channels of winds and drops, and it completely purifies all negativities that we have accumulated since a beginningless time. All of the negativities of not abiding by the 10 non-virtues, of any of the pratimoksa vows that we have contravened, of the the Bodhisattva vows that we have broken, of the tantric vows that we have broken, all the downfalls and so on that we have accrued and are purified, all of the naturally occurring faults that we have engaged in, or crimes that we have engaged in, anything proscribed by the Buddha that we have contravened, and that these all have been purified, and that in this life, in previous life, in the life previous to that, going back countless lifetimes to beginningless time, and that all of these negativities have been completely purified, and all physical problems and ailments that we have are also pacified. All mental attitudes that we have difficulty with are completely rectified, and especially our adherence to ordinary appearance being the biggest obstacle that we have to the attainment of enlightenment. That is completely, counteracted by our developing this sense of a pure appearance. And even at the level of imagination and aspiration, that we have this sense of being able to see all phenomena in kind of pure aspect. And so we have completely purified to that extent at this point.
아니 소소 시도터 롱데 니레제 아니 라마샤자스가 꾸데 해지 제겐체나 소소 류데 라마샤자스가 꾸르 교수 삼사자 다 소소 시도터 셈데 니레제 라마샤자스가 투데 해지 제겐체나 소소 셈데 라마샤자스가 투라 교수 삼사자 아니 랑게 네디야 네게 겨 탐제 바 장네 아니 라마샤자스가 겐다 가서다 다 같이 저기 셰카스로 야나 저 가서다 다 제답에서도 교수 서서 어떻게 보셔.
And then through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of the Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of a Buddha. Not only that, but the place I am in is purified of all contamination and is kind of arising as a pure a place, a pure realm, a pure celestial kind of mansion.
어들자 다란 라마샤자스 꾸르주에 투갈레 아니 저 셈제다 장다냐고 왜서 트네다 도리두게 셈제가 장냐 왜서 내가 셈제라라 소설 때만 대다 탐제자 아니 가서데 가서데 디바데 디바다네 아니 산제 꾸르주수 삼사차 아버투에 꾸르주수 삼사차
Again, my own body, speech, and mind are inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. So from my own heart center as a fully enlightened being, I send out light rays equal in number to all of the realm, all of the beings in all the 6 realms of existence. And on touching these beings, they are purified of all their negativities and obscurations and spontaneously arise as fully enlightened beings.
아니 내가 내 교탑했잖아요. 제가 소대다 제가 대화절라서 신gal 교수 선치 답이신 교수 삼사체.
And also the places that they are in, purified of all faults and contamination, and they can transform into pure realms.
다 섬제 담제 산제 고마토바다. 아니 제 두근게 아니 가서다 제 두근 소소게 두비에체도 개와 갈주바 제 두근 소소도 제가 유대는 말고 똑바로 팔다 잡래 섬사체.
And that this attainment of the state of enlightenment, the virtue that has led to that attainment, and I as the agent of that virtue, completely empty of any objective existence and merely imputed by thought. And so, and that emptiness, that emptiness combines with bliss, and I abide in the non-dual, the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness. And again, I rejoice how wonderful today is the day I've attained that state of enlightenment and being able to fulfill the purpose for all sentient beings. How great that is! I rejoice.
다단다다 몇 번 이제 문에다 된데 내려오서 가려 이내야 드링 뭐지 겨워 주 샤바티 다 뉴도 된데 주 주베게 아니 주를 좋아서 뭐죠 뉴안유도 주베 주를 좋아서.
And so, of course, this is not so easy as we have just explained or described. I know that. How could that be? But I will dedicate the virtue, whatever virtue I have attained from today, towards that goal, to make that reality manifest for real, and that it may quickly come about. I make that sincere dedication.
다 대대지 용하라 다 대대지 용하라 아니 저기 잠니지 자주선다 돈이 또 베시라고 탑시 중대 냠내 맞아 타면 또 니지 부저 라모고 타면 아니 디 다가자 저거 소소겠다 가서래 기부 중나다 두부 중나다 다 그래지나야 사통 다 저기 사통 다 니도 저랑 그래지네 아니 디다 맞아 왔지 아니 디 튕겨를 줘도야지 디 튕겨를 줘도 용하쇼스 어디서 고마셔.
And in order to make that manifest, to bring that about, I must perfect the qualities of loving kindness, of compassion, of the mind of enlightenment, of master the Vajra path, etc., etc. And these causes are must be brought about by my being able to really adopt an attitude towards whatever arises in life, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, that I am able to transform all of what occurs into conducive conditions to further my progress on this path. You are Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of compassion, not aimed at true existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception, Sankappa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of snow, Gosamdrakpa, at your feet, I pay respects.
That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone, thank you. And
Thank you,
take care.
Gemma.
Take
Thank you.
care. Take care. Take care.
Thank you, Sister Konchok.
Okay,
Thank you, Noel.
take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Again,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Noel.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Take care. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Enjoy.
Good night, again.
Yeah.